And Nigeria has ordered 4 banks, including Citigroup and Standard Chartered, to refund more than $8 billion it says was illegally expatriated by mobile phone company the MTN Group over 8 years through 2015. The decision will come as a blow to MTN because the company has already settled a separate $1 billion fine in Nigeria for missing a deadline to disconnect unregistered customers. Joining me now to unpack the story further is Tilewa Adebajo, who is the CEO of CFG Advisory. Tilewa, thanks so much for your time. What do you make of the news from the Central Bank of Nigeria about what MTN has or hasn't done?
Well, it's a major earthquake, Fifi. The issues here are very, very serious. For the Central Bank of Nigeria to come up with all these allegations and these numbers, it has taken its time to review those numbers. The direct impact, first of all, is that MTN, as you know, was supposed to conclude a listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. That clearly will be stalled. And from the aftermath of the previous $1 billion fine, MTN is still trying to recover from that. And there are issues here now around investor confidence in Nigeria. And we need to see how this will turn out. And we need to look at more details. What I am not quite sure is that if the $8 billion are returned, if the central bank would give MTN back the naira value of the $8 billion at the previous prevailing exchange rates. So the story is unfolding, but the allegations are very serious and the consequences are very dire.
Tilewa, you're talking about the central bank having done its investigation, but the Senate also did its investigation in 2016. In 2017, it released a report. Rather, it commissioned the Committee on Banking and Insurance and Finance, rather, to investigate MTN for forex controls. It released a report in 2017 clearing MTN of breaking any forex rules. So my question is, whose report do we believe here?
Definitely, it has to be the Central Bank of Nigeria. That is the primary regulator. The Senate is a legislative body and does not have judicial, regulatory, or prosecution powers. So we need to really take a look at that Senate clearance with a pinch of salt, because when the Central Bank of Nigeria, which is the apex regulatory bank, directly managing foreign exchange in Nigeria, comes out with this, I think we need to take it very seriously. And as you can see, the South African Stock Exchange is reacting to this with about a 20.4 drop in the shares of MTN, a 20.4% drop in the shares of MTN with a market capitalization of 160 billion rand. So these, we really need to discount the Senate investigation at this stage.
I mean, we're seeing a number of other stocks falling in sympathy because the central bank is also targeting the banks that it alleges facilitated MTN in moving this money out not properly. I mean, what is the situation there in Nigeria? Can you give us an update of the investor sentiment towards the likes of Stanbic, towards the likes of Standard Chartered?
Well, Stanbic IBTC is about the only bank that is listed out of the 3 banks involved, and we'll see how the trading goes on this morning in the Nigerian Stock Exchange to see how Stanbic IBTC is reacting. But obviously, these are mostly private institutions, so you don't really have that sort of. It's only Stanbic IBTC that has that Nigerian content. Sure. Most of these banks are privately held in Nigeria. So, but the investor sentiment at this point is very, very dire for Nigeria, and we really have to take a look at this very carefully. Sure. I listened to your previous speaker talking about looking for legal settlement, but at this stage, I think we need to start looking at bilateral discussions. We need to start taking a look more at looking at alternative settlements, because the impact on the perception of Nigeria as an investment destination is also something that we need to take into consideration. The stock market was actually anticipating the listing of MTN to boost the deepening and the viability of that market. And we really need to be very careful to make sure that we do not hurt global investor confidence in Nigeria, and of course more so on the continent itself, because Nigeria and South Africa are the two largest economies in Africa, and this straining business relationship might not, we really need to be very careful to make sure that we resolve this in an amicable manner.
Sure.
But clearly these allegations are very, very serious. Very
serious indeed, but some are even saying that there's a bigger story at play here. There's politics at play, and are suggesting that this is a personal attack on MTN. What's your view?
Well, it is a political economy, and I think we cannot discount that, and there are clearly business rivalry issues between Nigeria and South Africa. And South Africa, post-apartheid, is new to doing business in Nigeria. And I think MTN has been the flagship of the success story of South African businesses in Nigeria and, of course, on the African continent. Of course, MTN's largest market globally is in Nigeria, with about 55 million customers. I wouldn't really look at it from that perspective, to look at the fact that it's politically motivated or it's personal. While MTN might be a victim of its own success, I think you also have to take a look at the rule of law. South Africa is one of the countries in the world that has one of the strongest and one of the most stringent exchange control regulations. And South Africans, I think, classify their currency on the same level as maybe narcotics. You can't really mess around with the currency in South Africa and the exchange regulations. So when you have something like this that has happened, this is not new. I'm aware from what I have seen, and I can tell you authoritatively, that they have been in discussions, and I think sometime in May, the central bank had meetings with MTN and all the banks involved, asking from their own perspective on these issues and asking them to respond to these allegations. So they have been in negotiations, they've been in dialogue, and by the time the central bank is going to make this pronouncement, believe me, it's something that is very serious, and they've taken their time to dot their I's and cross their T's. Yes, while we recognize that underlying political tension, MTN was in fact let off the hook from the last fines because, again, there were some bilateral involvements. Presidents met, we looked at it, and we, in the sake of continued business relationships, the African Trade Agreement, African Brotherhood, I think that fine at that point in time was reduced to $1 billion. And we all thought that we had gone beyond that, and we were all looking forward to the MTN listing in the Nigerian markets. And of course, advisors have already been appointed.
Sure.
So it was something from the investment community we were all looking forward to. So we really need to wait and get more clarity from the central bank to really understand the gravity of this announcement. We
certainly look forward to that clarity, but thank you so much, Tilewa, for your time. That was Tilewa Adebajo, who is the CEO of CFG Advisory.